stamps we like.
I do apologize. It's just such a lovely, gentle afternoon here. I'm sorry for our technical difficulties. I think they've been sorted out. And so, yes, carry on asking us questions about our characters. I don't think I have a clip to show you just yet, so we'll probably do it next time. And so let's go back across to Tlo, who's got a clip of Tandi, mother of Tlalamba.
Yes, I will be talking about Tandi, but for now, I was on my way to the place where they saw Tingana. Tandi is one of the females that are in Tingana's territory. One of the oldest females. It's about a year younger than Tingana. And so, you know, females, they tend to hide a few days before they give birth. So, who knows, maybe Tandi will be giving birth, be having some cubs. So, let's go and take a look what Tandi was up to last week. Spotting a belly that has caused much speculation about how many she's eating for finally arrived at her baby Nyala kill. She was tantalizingly close to the den where she bore Tlalamba. This further fanned the flames of gossip about the cat's possible pregnancy. Could she be searching for a den to house a new litter? Who knows, maybe Tandi will be denning soon. And Tristan told me that Tandi was last seen at the place where she gave birth to Tlalamba. So who knows, if that place is still suitable for her, she will give birth there. And sometimes they change their den areas just for, I think, for different reasons. Or sometimes that maybe the inside was damaged by rain. So, you know, leopards, they take about 3 months gestation period. And they will give birth to these fluffy little balls that will be in a den side for about 6 weeks. And they are born weighing about 400 to 600 grams. Interesting, hey? Fluffy little balls. And what's so interesting about that is that immediately they start following the mother. After that 6 weeks, they'll be feeding on meat. So I'm still looking for rosettes. Who knows, maybe I'll find 1 or 2 around this thicket. So let's go to David in the Mara and see what he has for us.
Very good luck, Oli, and hopefully you are going to get a leopard today. If I would be asked, I would be happy if you could get Tingana. I wouldn't give you, much space to breathe. I would specifically insist on Tingana. Well, I already said I am going to cruise along the Mara River because I got some good news for you. Just see for yourself. That is water, water, and water. Apart from those ducks you've seen there, look carefully. Crocodile. Hello, sir, or madam. Not sure who that is. I'm sure there could be another crocodile somewhere. That's another one there. It's just the back. We normally say water is life, right? So this river, until maybe a week ago, the levels were very low, very low. Sorry about my head. But see, after the rains coming, the water levels have risen. And see the kind of life we've gotten back here. There's a cattle egrets on the other end. And look at the current of the water there. Beautiful. I'm still full of joy because I know when migration will come, the wildebeest will have to give us some very good show as they cross this particular famous Mara River that, you know, originates from Kenya going all the way to Tanzania, then back to Kenya. And you remember earlier I also said I am not going to the Sausage Republic today. I'm going to cruise and stay along the river. John, sorry, you're asking whether the Sausage Tree Pride ever come to the river. I'll tell you what, from where I am to where those sausages are, or where those lions are, it could be anything 25, 30 kilometers. You can imagine, close to 20 miles, I would say. It's a long way. But where they are, there are a lot of springs, there are a lot of wells, there are a lot of small rivers where they'll always get the water. It's such a long way. And definitely, Joanne, this will be totally different territory for them. Now, let's just give you another view of the river. And I was just about to finish saying I normally go every other day to the Sausage Republic to look for the sausages. But today I thought I will not go. But last week when I was there watching that pride, there's one particular female that is getting a lot of love from me with her cubs and the whole group in general, and her name is Mitty. Let's have a look what I saw. The sausage cubs are forever keeping us entertained with their daily playful antics. With full bellies from their recent buffalo kill, the pride's cohesion was clear as the clouds hung low and the lions snuggled in dreamland. With a quick scan of the horizon, the lioness Mitty ensured that all was safe around her pride. Not even flies could bother her as she caught up some rest in the magnificent Mara savanna. Well, ladies and gentlemen, anytime I go to that particular area and I see such a sighting of those lions and their cubs, my day is always complete. Yesterday I was there, I did not see any one of them, and I was like, where did they go? And it's always appealing to see them, and especially when they have their cubs out. Well, I looked carefully also last week, and I saw Kingtail, who was unwell, and she's coming back to ship very soon. But I got a feeling as time goes by, Mitty, that one particular female, will be taking over. Well, I'm going to stay here because I'm enjoying watching these ducks. You see all the ducks there in the background? One standing on its one foot. I do not know why she is standing on one foot, but my guess is maybe she doesn't absorb as much heat from the banks of the river, and it would make some very sense. Well, we'll move on along this river, cruise a few more kilometers and find out what could be happening on further upstream. But in the meantime, we'll take you down to Shala because he wants to talk about the Nkrumah lions.
Well, I'm certainly know David will find those lions. He's very, very good like that. Well, I haven't had as much luck. I have looked at the boundaries, but I also know that they have crossed, so I wasn't too hopeful. And we haven't heard anything on the Game Drive radio about it yet. But they did seem to have a very eventful week with the mating that was going on not too long ago, and then the waterbuck kill. So they'll be nice and full and still looking for their next meal. It won't last them very long. Remember that they're feeding many mouths. And we had the Avoca males come in. So there's also those two that they would have had to feed. In fact, I was there when that happened, and the way that they scattered when the Avocas joined was just amazing. Anyway, let's have a bit of a recap on what happened last week, especially with the waterbuck and the Nkuhumas. Sharing is not typically a feline trait, and the Nkuhuma pride is no exception. These lions ate as much as their bellies could hold, gorging themselves on a waterbuck carcass before others could arrive, lions or pesky scavengers. Feeding on up to a quarter of their body weight in one sitting, it is not surprising that sleep is the next priority for these lions. Cat naps are always sweeter with a belly full of waterbuck. It was quite a meal. It was very big and messy, as you would have seen, with the mouths of lots of them being all bloody. But it is exactly what they need, and that's just the way nature works. And that for every one waterbuck that they catch, there are tens of others that are free and maintain the whole circle of the predator-prey cycle, I suppose, in a way. But that was really, really nice to see. But I have moved on a little bit from my search for the lions, and now I'm going to have a look for Tandi or Tlalamba, just because we know that Tingana is definitely on the property, and Tandi and Tlalamba might also be hanging about. So if Oli is going to be looking for Tingana and of course the other two leopards, but I thought let me give him a bit of a hand and look for them too, especially since Tlalamba is the star today. So let's go back to the tent so that James can talk a little bit more about the princess.
Well, we're sort of outside the tent right now. Sebastian was looking at a starling and I'm looking at my friends, the bees, who are, well, swarming out of their little tunnel. I think what we'll do is actually take this into the tent, and we haven't looked at it through the microscope for some time, and so we'll do that once we have looked at our second clip of a Tlalamba, this one called Tlalamba Learning to Become a Leopard. I'm just going to put this over here. Our little bees, we don't want them in the sun. The tunnel will melt. There we are. Okay, for those of you who are perhaps new viewers, there's a colony of bees living in that skull, which I will show you now. Something to look forward to. Okay, here we go. Tlalamba learning to be a leopard. And there she is learning her stalking skills. Now at this stage, you'll probably find that she has definitely caught one or two francolins, maybe, certainly the odd testicular or lizard would have become a victim, definitely reptiles she would have eaten by this stage, and she's still extremely playful, as you can see. There she is, playing with her grumpy mother's tail, and in fact I think that her mother is allowing that sort of game. She can climb very adeptly, she's got huge paws, and she sort of practices her stalking skills at every available opportunity. And I was watching through these clips earlier and I thought to myself, you know, what we haven't managed to show, probably because it's difficult to show, is this kind of early well, one hesitates to say early independence, but this separation that she wasn't afraid to make with her mother from an early age, although they always used to come back together. Very affectionate relationship that they had, as is expected between these leopards, but she had this slightly rebellious streak. And we haven't really managed to show you here, but I mean it's quite difficult to show that. And there she's doing her beautiful little chuffing. Let me just go back a bit there. I'm just going to go back onto the tree. Look at that. Now, I've never seen a leopard do it as much as she does. That chuffing sound, and you can't hear the sound, but it basically goes like this. And it just looks like a friendly gesture. There's no teeth baring, there's no lip snarling at all. So it's a very friendly gesture that she often made to her mother and, of course, to her father when they met. And you can see there's Tandi doing it. She's doing a whole lot of chuffing there now, calling her daughter. All very friendly, the relationship's still very friendly. And here Tandi's caught her something to eat. Calling her and trying to make her come. Well, there she was, sorry, she was down there in the base. We'll just watch this on. Still this endless need to stalk, endless stalking practice, which she didn't do as a very small youngster nearly to the extent that she does it here, but now you can see her mother joining in on the game and enjoying it very much. So you can see very clearly the very affectionate relationship that the two of them had, despite the fact that Tandi is a grumpy girl, certainly more so than other leopards I've known, but there's a tremendous amount of affection and tolerance shown by Tandi and Tlalamba. Well, Tandi for Tlalamba there. So that puts us, when she's in October there, she's almost a year old now by the end of that clip. So we're getting to the point where she'll probably start showing some independence. Now, Debbie, you're wondering when they reach their adult size? Well, Tlalamba's not too far off it, but you'll probably find that she'll only attain her maximum mass when she's about 3. Her feet are almost indistinguishable from Tandi's. If you see them walking in the same substrate right next to each other, you'll be able to see which one is slightly smaller than the other. But if you just see them walking along the road, you wouldn't. I'm certainly not one of those who says I can tell the difference between the two. There are some people who will say they can. I can't. They look the same to me. But by 3 years old, she'll attain probably her maximum mass, which will be somewhere between 45 and 55 kilograms or so. So up to 110 pounds will be probably her maximum mass. That would be a big female leopard for this area. So that's her developing a little bit of size and muscle and no independence just yet, other than her little rebellious moments where Tandi would go around calling her, and you'd get this situation where Tandi'd kill someone. I don't think she's ever killed someone. She'd kill something, and then she'd call and call and call and call and call, and there'd be no sign of Tlalamba, and sometimes that would be for days. I remember it being once down near Treehouse Dam. I think she was a little bit older than she is here, but we were all very worried because we thought, well, something must have happened to her. And sometimes it was more than sort of 12 or sometimes more than 24 hours that she was absent, and Tandi would look for her. It wasn't independence, it was just her being rebellious, and she'd always come back, and they'd be affectionate like this. All right, let's go across to 3 Sleeps now. She has managed to find some pachyderms on this very hot afternoon.
I have. James gave me that nickname, 3 Sleeps. And you must please ask him to explain it to you when you go back to the tent. But I have these 2 lovely elephants, a mummy and a little baby. And they're just coming down to have a drink now. I was on my way to where I was going to start my leopard search. And then these 2 stopped me. And I couldn't be happier. Now watch this baby and the way that it's using its trunk. And you can actually see that half the trunk is quite wet while the other half is dry. It's busy picking through the nooks and crannies in the dam wall. What are you looking for? I'm just trying to get used to my trunk. That's pure curiosity is what that is. You look very into it, little baby. But pretty sure Mum doesn't mind because it means that you don't have to bother her while she has a nice drink. Now the rest of the herd is nearby, but these 2 obviously feeling the heat a bit, and they decided they need a small drink. Hello. Oh, it's so difficult for that little one to get up there. You can see it's a little boy. Now Mum's gonna come past us very soon. There's a lovely little path on our side. Hello, girl. How stunning is that? Please mind our aerials there. They've just moved behind us, but she's still watching me with the side eye, the typical side eye that does follow once elephants go past you. Very cute. Now I can't move just yet. Hello. It's always horrible when action is happening behind you because we can't really show it to you, but they're going to move to our side hopefully soon. No, she's decided to go straight behind us. So as soon as those bums move out of the way, I will also reposition and hopefully be able to show you. So they're making their way to the rest of the herd. Let's see if I can catch up with them behind us. We've missed elephants so much, and I'm so glad to have them nice and close to us again. Anyway, it seems that David up in the Maasai Mara has got something raptors. Nina did say something creative, but I couldn't remember what it was. Definitely wasn't ridiculous raptors, but that's what I'm going to say.
If I can remember very well, I guess Trishala's most favorite animal is the elephant, just like me. I don't know what we were discussing with her some times back, and both of us concurred elephants are the most beautiful animals that we got in Africa. Well, more good news, ladies and gentlemen. As you can see, that pan of water, look at the current of that water there. 2 weeks ago, this area, it was just trickling. It was like a small stream. But from where I am, let's find out if you can hear the waterfalls or the currents running like I am here with Archie. This reminds me of the Victoria Falls on the Zambezi River, either in Zambia or Zimbabwe. We've got our own small falls here, and I'm happy that you can hear the water falling. But of course it has a lot of brown in it because of the erosion of the soil it has carried from the highlands where it originates. It's one of the longest rivers we have in Kenya. It's not the longest, of course, but it's about 400 kilometers. We are talking about 250 miles long. And you can see what it means to have water in this river. Hippos, you can see them blowing some water there. They're in very good shape. We got, of course, crocodiles all in good spirit now because the water is back. See that? How playful they become. Everybody enjoys the availability of water on this particular river. At one point, I would say a month ago, we were getting a bit worried, and those hippos there are either swimming or having the best they can. Of course, hippos cannot swim because they will not be able to float. They're just too heavy, but I guess they're on the bank of the river and just splashing the water and enjoying themselves. All the hippos you see here, they're standing, you know, on the base of the water. It's strange that hippos cannot swim and elephants can swim, like the ones Trishala had a few minutes ago. Now, many animals along this river would have a lot of choices and options should the river dry. But these big mammals here, the hippos, unfortunately, should anything go wrong, should the river dry up, I can tell you they will all die. So we're a bit concerned, but we started seeing signs of clouds building, and it has been very good news for us. Now, this river originates from some parts of the highlands of Kenya, as I said earlier, and the bigger part, I would say 2/3 of the Mara River is in the Mara Game Reserve. The main Mara in the Mara Triangle, and then it flows south towards Tanzania to Serengeti National Park, and then from there it comes back to Kenya and it flows all the way to the Lake Victoria. So this is all the good news, ladies and gentlemen, I had for you on this river. I'm sure you're happy to see it's full of life, hippos, crocs, birds and everything else. I'll now try and look for anything around this area that I've not been for quite some time. And just going back to Joel, who was asking me earlier whether sausages would come to drink water here. If anything, it could be two prides. One called the Paradise Pride and another pride that we call the Mugoros. Well, I think James is still hiding in the tent and he's trying to tell us how a microscope works.
Just have a look at this. When we started viewing these things, we used to find maybe one or two, if we were lucky. I'm not going to fiddle, I can fiddle with the focus now. They've just moved down a little bit. As he's coming to look at the microscope. And what they're doing is just adding to this little tunnel. I'm not sure why. Some of them were carrying a bit of wax. Now others have just kind of check out what's going on here. And every time we move, they get a bit of a fright and go back down. You can see they have got biting mouth parts, but I mean, that's not going to do a great deal of damage. So these are entirely stingless bees, otherwise known as Mopani bees. I'm sure there are lots of different species of Mopani bees, or sweat bees, or stingless bees. And they do make a honey, and this one happens to be buried deep inside the brain cavity of this giraffe. In fact, I don't even think it is in the brain cavity, because if you look up through where the spinal column used to go, it's not in there. So there's some other kind of cavity just over here at the back of the giraffe's skull. And they've lived in this thing now for at least 4 years. Let's call it 3.5 years. At least. I don't know if they were there before. But when we first got this microscope, we discovered these chaps. And it was much smaller, and we only ever used to see 1 or 2 at a time. Now, if you leave this thing outside for any length of time, you'll see thousands of them flying around, going in and out of the tunnel. Heather, you say busy bees. Yes, they're not that busy, I don't think. I think they could be busier. And I've never tasted their honey, but apparently they don't make a great deal, but it's apparently very delicious, sort of slightly sour. Anyway, those are the stingless bees of the tent. And I'll just show you where they live. Mercy, you can absolutely eat the honey that they make. It tastes like a sort of, apparently like a, sort of like a sourish, sweetish, sourish grape. And if you want to look over here, that's where they live. They're tiny little things. And of course, calling them sweat flies, which some people do call them, is totally wrong, because a fly is from a different order of insect entirely. These are definitely bees. Now, I'll just show you the skull, or at least the cavity. See, the brain case is in there. And the brain case is definitely free of those chaps, although there is a crack there. So there's a cavity between, basically about an inch behind this sort of wall there. And there is an entrance over there, I see. There's a slight crack. Maybe that's how they got in initially. Sorry, Ian, I missed that question from you. What did you get it?
Can they get attacked by a spider?
Can they get attacked by a spider? Yeah, I suppose a spider would eat one if they could. I think it most likely get caught in an orb-web spider's web. So, you know, if one had strung its web across a couple of pieces of grass, then and one of these chaps flew past, then yes, I think they would get caught. There's a gecko. That's gone. I obviously, I've become inured to this kind of, I suppose it's not shameful at all, but James Richard did identify the orb-web spider that we had this morning as a hairy field spider. Thank you, James, again. Off my hat once again. But it was an orb-web spider, everybody. Some of you thought I was going to beat myself again. But it was more specifically a hairy field spider. So thank you for that, James, if you happen to be watching. But it's something like a hairy field spider would definitely eat one of these bees if it happened into the nest. Okay, let's put this chap outside. And while I do that, let's go back to David and his crocodilos.
Well, it's a good idea just stay in the tent and look at the microscope, look at small things like bees, like exactly what James is doing. I was just about to leave, and Archie, who is showing you these wonderful images, pointed out to me this is one of the largest crocodiles he has seen, and I think it's very true. There are two of them there, if you look carefully, and there is the one that have a lot of light on it, and if you look at the back of her tail, there's another one that blends in very well. Now, a few weeks ago, we were coming here and we were seeing 0 crocodiles. And what would happen is, when it gets very dry, we all know crocodiles are carnivores, and they'll normally wait for antelopes of all sorts to come and have a drink. They'll of course eat any fish in the water, catfish, mudfish. When it's very tight and the water levels are low, or there's no water, and the antelopes not come have a drink, and there's not maybe much fish, they will do what we call aestivation. They make themselves a very small home or a cocoon on the bank of the river, and they slow down their body processes. Now, the rains having come, they know animals will come to drink. Any fish that will also be behaving the same way, doing aestivation, the opposite of hibernation, will also come out. And that's why in this particular area I've counted about 5 crocs, which is pretty good news. As much as I said the hippos are out or the birds are out, this is a very good sign. Now, this particular species of the crocodile is what we call the Nile crocodile. It's one of the largest crocodiles we have in the world. Not sure you can see the teeth of that one, Archie, because that's always one major difference between the alligators and crocodiles. Once they shut their mouth, as you can see here, you'll always see a tooth or two or a number of teeth out. But when alligators shut their mouth, you do not see a single tooth out. And we also see the crocodiles here, their mouth, or it's kind of a snout, it's V-shaped, it's pointed, whereas the alligators have like a U or a round mouth. Quite aggressive. And if you look carefully, the eyes, the ears, the nostrils, everything is right on top of the head. It's wonderful how much we love these reptiles. Unlike way back when people would either hunt them for eating and not anymore. That's a good question as I'm leaving the crocs here. How big are the Mara crocs? Well, I would say more or less the same size. But I have seen crocs in the Mara, and especially the males, 18, 19 feet long. 18, 19 feet long, and those are humongous crocodiles. Huge, very big crocs. So more or less the same size because they're the same species that you call the Nile crocodiles. But in the Mara, I think they're exposed to too much food. It's very open, and especially on the rivers. And of course, you also see the crocs in lakes. I would say slightly bit larger than the ones that we see in Juma. Around the Chitra Hall, we've got some crocs there, and I think they got names. I can't remember if it's a male and female, and maybe some youngster too. I can't remember. But in general, the crocs in the Mara are huge by any standard. And that's why for them, when we get the migration of the wildebeest, which we expect a couple of months now, they easily stay under the water and wait for them to cross and catch one. And yeah, we'll get that question again from Gabriel about the crocs as we move forward and find out what it could be having ahead. Well, I hear some very good news. Gabriel will come back to your question later, but I hear some good news with Oli in Juma.
Yeah, we have some good news here. I've made 3 360 tens in this area. And what I could find was Scuba Steve and Snorkel Sarah. No leopard, no traces of a leopard, no tracks, nothing. What I could easily see was hippos and this drying dam. Our favorite and most exciting hippos you can find in the southern hemisphere. At least this couple is still together. Hopefully they'll be together for the rest of their lives. But this level of this dam, this water level, doesn't show that Sarah will be sticking around for a while. It's sad to see Scuba Steve losing water, and he will be losing Sarah. But I hope Sarah will be convinced, and then she will be sticking around. So we had an interesting sighting last week with Ben, the wild dogs, and the hippos. So let's go and look at the clip of the week, which is last week.
The bush delivered us a spectacular sighting of southern Africa's most endangered carnivores after they stole an impala carcass from a lone lioness. Our love-struck duo, Steve and Sarah, seemed oblivious to their visitors, but for the occasional intimidatory yawn. Soon they ventured into cleaner water for a drink, while the ever-energetic dogs engaged in an impromptu game of tag and some important social bonding before settling in for the night.
Yes, what an amazing sighting, astonishing sighting, as James used to say. So looking at the wild dogs, or being next to the wild dogs, it's so amazing, even if they're not doing anything than sleeping, because these are the rare species you can find in this place. So seeing them, it's so heartwarming, like looking at our interesting hippos here. So since I've been with Safari Life, I've only saw Scuba Steve and Snorkel Sarah doing what they're doing now, not even yawning. Teddy, do hippos make the noise? Made to life. Made to life. Made for life. Am I correct, FC? Okay, do hippos mate for life? That would be amazing if it happens, because they do mate for life if the male is fit enough to defend his territory and his females. But if there's a hippo that will defeat him, unfortunately he will have to leave or just stick around and not bother any ladies. But it needs a fittest hippo to do that. And interestingly, in some animals like antelopes and some mammals, I don't know whether hippos, they also do that. What they do is, females, they sneak out and they go and mate with other males and come back and pretend as if everything is okay. And then when they get a chance, they will go out again and mate with other males. So what happens in the impala species. They do that, but hippos, I'm not sure. So I'm still looking for Tingana, but it is not easy in this terrain because it's so thick. So I won't give up. I will be pressing forward. But hopefully Trishala will be also looking for the rosetted cat. Let's go to Trishala and have a look.
I will also be looking, and I will definitely be helping you out, Koli, because I would love to see a leopard this afternoon. So I'm going to be looking, hopefully, for Tandi or Tlalamba around where they were. Well, that's where I am at the moment. It's where they were last seen, or pretty much in the right area. So I'm just taking a nice, cool drive through and having a good look, having a listen as well. But it seems to be pretty quiet at the moment. When I had seen the elephant down that I had shown you by Twin Dams, there were some other elephants across the road as well, so they had joined up. And there were even some kudu there, so I might return there if action seems sparse. But number one priority would be to look for those leopards. So I'll be helping Koli, and he seems to be still up in the Buffelshoek area, which is really much more north than I am at the moment. I'm just kind of going through the roads here at the east, and then he'll come down northeast and meet me. And then we'll know for sure that we've checked everything we need to check. But while I am driving around, I can tell you about my little fact for today. In 1994, it was first published that the mouse or the gene that is associated with aging was found in mice, which is really, really important because a lot of animals age differently, and the way that we age, or we as mammals age, is quite different. Even the way that mice age compared to us can be quite different. So of course we're not going around and feeding people the things that the mice are being fed just yet. But what had happened is that isolated a gene, and what scientists did is they turned off that gene. Genes can be modified in a way so that they're no longer useful, or they don't do their job, and they modified that gene that was associated with senescence, so which is the biological term for aging. And when they did that, the mice lived for twice as long. So these were lab mice, and it seemed that they lived for 14 days at first, and then when they modified that gene so it no longer acted on the telomeres of their chromosomes, which is what's associated with aging, they were found to live double the time. So can you imagine, if they had done that for us, we could live to something like 160 if the average age is 80-ish. And then when they did the opposite thing, and they isolated the gene that's associated with being happy and healthy, and then they didn't actually, why am I confusing myself? No, they definitely had isolated the two genes, one that's associated with senescence or stopping senescence, and one that's associated with it. And either way, whenever they had modified the one to not act, either an animal would die quicker before their 14 days because they don't have that gene to actively keep them going, or they would be alive for longer, which is really interesting. So it's only a matter of time before those things are kind of isolated in humans as well, especially since our genome is pretty much mapped. Anyway, that was just a small segue. Let's send you back to the tent so that James can continue his discussions.
The temperature is just so absolutely perfect out here that I had to have a small pretend nap. The sky is a glorious autumnal blue. And it is just, I mean, I could probably stay here quite happily for another hour, but it would be very boring for you to watch me do this for another hour. So what I'm going to do is rather go to Tlalumba's third clip. Oh, just lovely. Do you like my yellow socks, by the way? They went very nicely with my yellow shirt from today. Yellow is one of my favourite colours. That is, of course, because it is a happy colour. It is the colour of sunrises and sunset and Goldilocks and that sort of thing. Right, let's have a look at our third clip. I have it queued and ready. And this is Tlalumba starting to unfortunately be less than welcome at home. Here it goes from August last year, so when she was 3 months shy of a year, so 9 months old. And at 9 months, I guess you could probably say it's the equivalent of a pre-teen human being, I'd say, at 9 months. Not quite a teenager yet. Puberty hasn't started just yet, but certainly, kind of boisterous child. Don't want it messing around too much with its food. It should have learnt certain things by now. Now you can see straight away there's no contact between Tandi and Tlalumba at all. It's simply the proximity of the daughter to the mother, and she's irritated by her presence. And we haven't seen that at all in the last few clips. Obviously it's happened once or twice during the course of when she was smaller than this, but much more obviously from this point onwards. There, we let it roll a little bit. And now, this is, to me, the most interesting thing. I remember this sighting. There was a tremendous fight over this sighting. Eventually, Hosana came in here and he tried to steal this food. And in fact, Tandi and he had a big boxing match at this sighting. I think it was the morning after this. Anyway, there she is in the tree, fat as you like, and there's her daughter. Now watch this. Look how mum's looking down towards daughter. Daughter's looking up. And I remember, actually, I'm not sure if I was in this sighting, but I remember the Tlalumba sitting underneath this tree making a noise for a while and then jumping up. And look at that. There's a hissing. You can't really see it there because it's not quite exposed enough in the shade. But what's going on there is Tandi is shouting at Tlalamba basically and saying, "Get out." And there Tlalamba thinks better of going after the kill. Now what's also interesting, if you come over here, Seb, if I can just point this out, what we've got is a situation where, in fact, it's not like Tandi's at the kill. So Tlalamba could have gone up, past, towards the kill. She's certainly fast enough to have done that, but she did not. What she did was she went straight back down the tree. And if you look at her belly, I don't think she looks very full at all, unlike her mother. So she hasn't eaten much of that, which means by this stage she must have been eating a lot more on her own than her mother was feeding her. And that wasn't me in the sighting, because I can see a camera lens there with some camouflage on it. So I think that was Tristan. No, Tristan doesn't have camo on his lenses, does he? I wonder who that must have been. Taylor. Must have been Taylor. Okay, so let's play it on. And there she is growling from the top of the tree. Debbie, if you don't mind, I'm going to get to your question a bit later. How does she go about establishing her own territory? Let's get to that in the next clip, or when we know that she's kind of more independent. So let's carry on here. Here, Mum is growling at Tlalamba, and Tlalamba is, I've said here, is obviously eating more than Tandi's giving her. And we know that because she's being chased away from this kill, and she is also certainly not looking particularly skinny, but she's not looking very fat here, which means she hasn't eaten much of this kill. Probably a little bit, but not much. And why would you come to the table with a mother snarling at you like that? And there she was forced to look up at the food. Here we're having a bit of a drink. Now this is when Tandi had an injury. Remember that injury on her back leg that everyone worried about? We always worry about when our animals get injured, and that whether or not they'll recover, but she certainly did recover. And you can just see over there, she had that little injury. So we'll play on from here. Come on. Now here comes little daughter. There's no contact, and immediately there's a growl. Not happy. So just increasing the space slightly, not chasing her away. In fact, let me just go back there if you don't mind. I remember that, where that was. That was a beautiful little pool, just sort of around the southeastern corner. In fact, Seb, you and I found that, and Shan was on the car with us. We found it with the bird's alarm calling there. I remember that. They had a kill there, and in fact, they were there for quite a while. I think they killed 2 or 3 things there. It was around about sort of winter last year, end of winter last year. And here, the tail swishing and the physical contact just not nearly as welcome as it was. It's not aggressive chasing away like we saw last night, but it's certainly not as friendly as she once was. And I mean, like I say, all of this, okay, we've picked moments that demonstrate what we're trying to show you here. It's all a continuum. So what you will find is that moments like this, where Tandi snarls at her, just became more and more frequent. They started from when she was very young, but they would have been very infrequent. And they just increase in frequency until it gets to the point where the mother will no longer tolerate having the youngster around. And we'll see a little bit more of that in the next clip. We've definitely seen it with her other daughter, Guchava, where she will not tolerate being anywhere near her at all. Okay, now, I'm very pleased to hear that David Gathamba Gitu has managed to find himself something other than an aquatic creature.
Oh, yes, James, you see the disadvantage of staying in the tent. You are not lucky to see what you're seeing here, because we found ourselves a male lion and he's walking in front of us on the road. We just want to go. Let's first see him from where we are, as much as he wants to hide in that grass. He is one of the most gorgeous male lions I've seen in the recent past. He's a young boy, I would say, maybe 5 years, I would guess, 4 or 5. But he looks to be in top form. I mean, very prime. I want to stop here because he's investigating something, and you can't believe it. In front of him, there's a toppy. I doubt he'll go for it. And actually you see right straight there. But this is just a coincidence. Not that he was hunting, but look at how he's looking at that toppy, eh? He's debating, where did you come from? Do I hunt? Had I made plans for hunting? Am I in the right stalking mode? Do I have enough cover? Now look at his body language. He is just frozen. Slowly. Okay. 1 foot up. Now, he has, I would say, unexpectedly engaged in hunting mode. Not sure. I'm just... Exactly, he's so big. No, I got a feeling the toppy have seen him. And I think for me, the lion thinks the toppy hasn't seen him. Oh yeah, Toppy had seen him way back. And Toppy, you are smart. You have taken off. You know, sorry boy, you'll have to plan better because you already exposed yourself. And definitely, either that Toppy smelled you or saw you. I am guessing this lion comes from a coalition that we call the Chelly Boys. Chelly Boys are always 2 males. This one, who I guess I saw the other day, I could be wrong, and he was devouring a baby buffalo, and he's good question there. We just want to move forward a little bit, and you'd like to know, I think, Chris, what territory we are in. The territory we are in now is what we call the Mogoro territory. I mean, we have a particular, I would say, coalition of lions here that we call the Scarface and his brothers, who we have not been seeing for quite some time. Personally, I have not seen them, but this particular territory, we call it the Mogoro territory, and the Mogoros are normally 3 females. Now, we have seen the Scarface and his brothers come in and out, you know, come in and go, but also of late we have started to see the Chelly Boys, which I usually, or normally, or before, I was calling the nomadic males. Are you happy there, Archie? We see this boy as he's cruising through the elephant grass there. So this is the territory I am, and it belongs to those 3 girls that you call the Mogoros. But I don't think this territory has been claimed by any one particular coalition of males. Let's see if we can hear the hippo, or rather the Toppy, making an alarm call from the other side. And looking at the belly of this lion, to me, he is not hungry. He wouldn't mind, you know, catching anything for himself on the way. Like that Toppy, back on the road again. And the Toppy goes... That was the Toppy, that was not me. How majestic is this boy. Now, I haven't seen his coalition mate, who usually have a half-tail, and I wouldn't know what would have happened to it, because it always have a very small wound at the end, and that wound has taken ages to heal, and I do not know at what point they splitted, and nobody has been seeing them together as we have always been seeing them the last couple of months. But this could be going to a month now. We're seeing this particular boy on his own, and not the other one that has a half tail that got a wound at the very end. Well, he has disappeared in the grass there. What we want to do is I want to see whether we can go a little closer to him, but if he disappears in the tall grass, he has given us some wonderful sighting. And talking of a Chelly male lion here, let's talk of other males in Juma with Trishala.
Yes, well, we were talking about other males, the Avoca males, but I wanted to show you this lovely crested barbet before he flew off. But that's what they tend to do, these birds. But I was hoping, because it was so close, I literally just came and there it was. But no. Instead, we have a few starlings that are hopping about there. Now, speaking of powerful lions and males, The Avoca males have been around, and I actually just heard on the game drive radio that there's possibility that they may be in the northeastern corner, northwestern corner. Wow, get your bearings right, Trishala. Northwestern corner is where they might be. So I might head past there and give it a little bit of a squiz, but there are other vehicles looking for it as well, or looking for them. But while we go around looking for the Avoca males, let's catch up with what they got up to in the last week, and I was lucky enough to experience it. The Avoca males showed up at the Nkuhuma's latest kill to feast. Well deserved after a week of mating. Their strong teeth and jaws meant that they could comfortably enjoy their meal without any harassment from the females or scavengers. Digesting all that meat is tiring business, and like their female companions, the Avocas couldn't resist a post-waterbuck siesta. They're truly impressive males, those Avocas. I really like having them or being with them. And that particular sighting when we had the waterbuck, it was so cool because one brother came in and he started to feed, and he had his back to where other animals could walk through. And then the other Avoca came through, and this brother that was eating didn't know, didn't see, didn't hear, nothing, too concentrated in eating. And he crept up on him as if you would to your mate when they're busy doing something and you can see that they can't tell that you're there. And then he pounced on his back, and then he was and then they both started eating happily. So it was very cool, and I quite like sightings of the Avoca males. So I am gonna rush over to that northwestern corner and maybe just have a squiz around myself. I did go past there earlier, but there was no update at that point. But now that there is an update, I may go past again, just briefly. Oh, let me just reverse a little and maybe we can hear this. Nothing like some rutting males. Is that alright, Craig? You can just get him through the bush. He's been quite noisy, so noisy that I could hear him over my engine. Oh, now you're gonna stop performing for us. Typical. It's because they know in Safari Lives we're discussing the characters in Impala think that they are not deserving enough to be a character. Chef Lady, you'd like to know if anyone's ever seen the three Avoca boys together. I'm sure they have. I have seen the three of them on one day. I can't say with one look of my eyes or in one scene. I didn't see them all, but I did see the three of them in one day. So it's so unlikely that they would be on the same property together or within a few kilometers of each other and wouldn't actually associate, especially since they are quite a strong coalition. If you've ever seen when they've had any sort of issue, like I remember when the one brother had that bit of that hole on the top of their head and it was oozing and not looking very good. Do you remember that? Well, when that had happened, I saw both the other brothers, not at the same time or not together, but one brother was around and not very close, but still around the injured one. Then at a later time, the injured one fell asleep and the other brother had walked off. Then another brother came along and he lifted his head up and tried to lead the injured one to some water at Gallagher Pan. So they definitely are associating together. It's just a matter of luck, I suppose. I haven't seen them in all three in one scene, but I'm sure they must have been. But they're quite spectacular males. I'd really like to be able to catch up with them today. But I will, like I said, drive past there quickly and then I will head down to the den if I can't see anything for the lions. Anyway, let me send you back to James and we'll continue our discussion about Little Tlalapa.
Hello everybody. oh dear, we've just not killed the sound. Now we've killed it, it'll be fine. I was just collecting a specimen that we can then put under the microscope, which we will do. Mirror, it was close. Nearly pulled the whole tent down. Let me watch myself as it happens. Replay. Oh, beautiful. Look at that. What a total fool. Okay. Anyway, we'll have a look at the elephant dung under the microscope shortly, because there are nice termites there. But let's have a look at our fourth clip first. Right. Okay, let me just pause it there. This one is called Tlalamba, the Little Hunter. Now, even before I push play, what I am going to say... Let me do that again. Even before I push play, what I am going to say... See what I did there, Seb? What I am going to say is that, obviously, like I said at the beginning, she's been swatting at things with her little paws since the very beginning of her life. Probably as soon as she could walk, she's been thinking of catching things and slapping bits of grass that move around her, then termites, then the odd grasshopper, then perhaps lizards. We've actually seen her catching lizards. Then maybe fish even when she's been near the water, maybe frogs, maybe tortoises and terrapins. We know they like those. We haven't seen her eating terrapins as frequently as we used to see Shongila and Hosanna eating terrapins, which is quite interesting. We might see her doing that now as she moves sort of more towards independence, but as I said, leopards have different characteristics. Then she moved on to more challenging things. Certainly birds, francolins, I'm sure some smaller birds as well, and now things like these mongoose. Now, this is almost playful because cats, of course, are complete opportunists. And so what she's doing here is basically just seeing what the opportunity is, and the opportunity presents itself because the mongoose, for some reason, probably distracted by the vehicle behind the leopard, runs straight towards her. Look at them all. Was that you?
Yes.
That's cool, eh? And look at that. I think we've paused in quite a nice spot there. I'm not sure if you can see that. You haven't paused at quite the same place, but let's just pause it here. And you can see the leopard has only got 1 foot on the ground. So she's moved only 1 foot on the ground. And if you look carefully over here, you can see that the mongoose is in fact swearing very loudly. If you were to roll that on by 1 frame, I wonder if I can do that. No. In fact, yes, that is 1 frame. It's just so fast. Yeah. So you can't actually see what the mongoose says, but it definitely began with F, I think, at that stage. And then it runs off. And you can see it just moving off there. Incredibly fast are the mongoose. They definitely did see the leopard. I said to you that they didn't see the leopard. They were distracted by the vehicle behind, but they must have seen it because they all came up and they trusted their own speed. Anyway, we'll roll it on from here. And they all... She actually made contact with it, didn't she? She kind of had a grip on it and then it disappeared. Yeah. And we've seen leopards try and just kind of licking those things and then leaving them because I think they make a very bad smell with their anal glands. Anyway, that was the mongoose. Now here she is with some birds. Now by this stage, she's at Chelapan and it's early this year already. So she's over a year old. I think this is probably around February, probably Feb. This year, I seem to remember, and she hung around, not Chelapan, she hung around this Gwaripan area for quite a while, and she'd hunt these birds. But she'd have been doing this for almost as long as she's been alive. So there's a lot of play involved in this, but of course the pleasure behind the play is what inspires her to do this stuff. And we can talk a little bit about that. Let's just watch what happens here. Not a great deal. Given up there. So when I say that there is pleasure, the play that all of us as as mammals engage in, and in fact not only mammals, mostly just mammals, engage in, releases dopamine in the brain. That creates a sense of euphoria, slight sense of euphoria, and in those of us who have got normal physiologies or relatively normal physiologies, that's sufficient to give us a bit of a kick, and it makes us want to do it again when that dopamine stops flowing. So in this case, what that means is that the enjoyment of the hunt or the stalk or the play translates into something that's going to give her a meal, and therefore she does it. If she hated hunting, her hunger might not ever be satiated, because we don't know this for sure, but we don't think that they are able to process thoughts like we are. So if you are hungry, but you don't feel like cooking, you will force yourself to go and cook, because not because you enjoy cooking, but because you need to eat. If a leopard doesn't feel like hunting, if it's got a depression of some description, its dopamine receptors don't work, then it's going to die, because it just simply won't hunt. It's like a dog that doesn't feel like eating. It just won't eat. It doesn't feel like it. And so it needs to experience this pleasure, and that's why it looks like it's having fun. It is having fun. The leopard is having fun. There she is, having sort of given up because she was just doing it for fun. In fact, her belly is so full there that there's no real point in her continuing to hunt little laughing doves. Then, of course, I'm not sure why this is labelled June 2018. Maybe it was June 2018, but I suspect that this must have been her first duiker kill. So let's just go back a little bit. I mean, that's pretty early, I would have said. I mean, that's what? She's only 8 months. I guess it's not. Is that right? No, December, January, February, March, April, May, June. No, she's 7 months old. Okay, at this stage. Let's call this late June. Remember that it's not unheard of for a leopard, especially a female, to go completely independent at 8 months. So at this age, she could, in theory, have survived if something had happened to Tandi, or Tandi had disappeared or fallen pregnant again and given birth, which we think may have happened already. We can get onto that a bit later. But what's interesting here is that here she has a duiker. I'm assuming that she killed us. I don't remember this. I'm pretty sure she must have killed us, or wouldn't be in this clip. And it just shows that she could have been independent from much earlier. And now we're at to sort of more modern times, March or April this year. So that's, I mean, very recent. There she is sleeping on her plate. I'm not really sure why she's doing that. She'd have been eating scrub hares for a long time, but probably much more successfully catching them now. Is that scrub hare's eye blinking? Can't be. No. Scrub hare was dead. All right, so that's kind of getting on to where we are now. We've got one more clip, I think, after this. No, we've got two, actually. We've got two more. That's not the biggest stuff she's caught. We know she's caught bigger. We'll show you that a little bit later. So that's her kind of vibe up until fairly modern times. Now, I see there are no questions coming through about this vibe, and so what we're going to do is have a look at the microscope at some animals that are not, in fact, characters, but they are wonderful nevertheless. They are termite. Oh dear, we've got a raid going on. Hang on a second, let me sort this out. There we are. There's the termite. Nina, are you still there with us? Final control, come in. Right, sorry about this. It's difficult to focus. There you can see there's a raid. There's an ant stealing a termite, kidnapping it, abducting it, making life very horrible for it. Sorry, I'm just going to... There we go. You saw it disappear there. Let me lift it up slightly. I'm sorry about this. It is a little tricky. There we are. Look at that. Horrible. Horrible to see. So what we have here is a piece of elephant dung in which the termites have set up shop and the ants are now raiding them, which is rather sad. Anyway, you can have a look there. They've set up shop there. That's why you shouldn't ever kick these things, because they've often got little things living in them. So unfortunately these termites are being harassed by ants. And normally the ants win. I'm not sure what the purpose of a soldier termite is, because I've never ever seen a soldier army of termites manage to repel an ant attack. Alrighty, we'll put this outside, back again in the sun, and I'm now going to exit the tent in a much more elegant fashion. Here we go. As you go across to David in the Maasai Mara, I will climb over elegantly. Bye-bye.
Right, yeah, keep staying there, James, in the tent, because, again, as I said, sorry, some of the things we are seeing, you not see them if you remain in the tent. You need to come out. And I'm thinking I got a youngster, is it a young giraffe there? I'm trying to imagine it's a young bull there. I could be wrong, because it's quite a distance. And this is the Maasai giraffe. Why did you stop there? One big advantage giraffes got is they can easily pick up their enemies. There would be predators. I'm talking of either hyenas or lions or leopards. But of course, I'm talking when they go for the babies, not fully grown like these ones. But once in a while, you should see a group of hyenas, a group of lions. They have been known to do that. The area I am now currently that I'm watching these giraffes is a territory that we have one of the most famous clans of hyenas in the Mara, and I was very lucky to have seen maybe what we think has been the matriarch for a very long time, and we think her granddaughter might have overthrown her waffles. Let's have a look to what I saw last week. After a quick sniff at the entrance of the North Clan Den, it was time to explore. And Oda Cab was full of high spirits as she showed off her stuff by running and playing in the long grass. The little one quickly became wary of the dangers that lurk, but after realizing an adult was nearby, the races were off yet again. A younger cub wasn't faced with the older one's playful antics. This little one was on important hyena business. Scent marking. Finally, with spent energy from the busy play, the cub's bellies rumbled and they settled in for some mother's milk. At a different den site, the former matriarch Waffles and her cubs had the same idea. When feeding was done, she wandered off into the Mara savannah once more to find herself a meal. Well, some time back, ladies and gentlemen, we had a very interesting debate of the cubs that we see in Africa, and we spoke about lion cubs, cheetah cubs, and hyena cubs, and we were debating, I think, myself, Trish, and a few other guys, which cubs are most interesting to watch. And as much as we were settled on leopards, I might be changing a little bit and say I think hyena cubs are just fun to watch as they play, as you saw in that particular clip. Well, we think Waffle's time or Waffle's reign could be over, and her granddaughter Soup might be taking over. And not very far from where we are, my friend Lauren saw a giraffe that had given birth. And those hyenas you saw there in that particular clan that called the North Clan were trying, and I think finally they ate the baby of that giraffe, unfortunately and sadly. Well, this is an African Cape buffalo, and the village I come from, I have two animals that I do not want to meet when I'm walking, either during the day or the night: hippos and buffaloes. They don't give you a chance to think, they don't give you a chance to breathe, and you'll be very lucky, especially if you meet with them on one-to-one. Now, this is a huge boy, and you can see the amount of mud he's put on his body. You see it's all dark, telling you that the kind of soil chemistry we have here is the black cotton soil. So what should happen is you may survive a herd of buffaloes, but not one solitary buffalo like this. Well, I am just hoping I'll be able to see more lions before the end of the drive, and I'm sure Trishala is working very hard on the same.
I am working hard, thank you. But obviously not hard enough, because I have not found a leopard or a lion yet. And working hard or hardly working, Trishala, No. But I'm entering up at the hyena den now, just so we can see what they've been up to. And the whole week they've been pretty busy. My problem is that every time I seem to go there, it's always in between something. It seems like someone's either leaving or they're putting the cubs back into the den. And I just don't get to spend enough time with them. So I only really get to see a glimpse. And then I've got to move away again because there's nobody around. So I'm hoping that it'll be better today. I also wonder if the change in weather, it's getting cooler quickly, if they're putting, or the adults are going out to hunt earlier in the day, or going out earlier in the day, whereas they're leaving the cubs maybe in the den slightly earlier. I'm not sure, but whatever is happening, they're leaving me out of it, definitely. And as you would know, there are 2 den locations at the moment, which is quite exciting, because it means that we'll have 2 options when we want to go look for the hyenas. But even with that, I'm not sure if they're constantly using 2 dens or they're kind of just playing at one and then playing at another and using them both for all families. I'm not sure. Either way, I am heading to them. So last week we had them in the den towards the west, the den we know well, the one with the pool in the front. And that's where it was pretty active last week. So I'm going to hope that it still is active and that I could see my lovely Plonk. Now, I didn't see Plonk last week, and I don't think anyone else saw Plonk last week, but we did manage to catch a glimpse of June's cubs.
Our Juma Clan den is always a hive of activity. Now, with 2 den locations, it's double the fun. At the den in the west, the youngsters got up to their usual antics. Play is an integral part of any young mammal's life. Learning from our peers and elders. Of course, picking fights is part of the deal also. Cubs learn to assert their inherited rank while others are bullied into submission. The elaborate and somewhat strange greeting ceremony brings much excitement to growing cubs and further consolidates the hyena hierarchy.
So playful, and I love it. I love watching them. They really are value for money when it comes to entertainment, hyena cubs. And I always find it really interesting. You'd have noticed even in that clip that when the hyena bites certain bits, like of that adult, with the back of the neck, and then it starts to thrash its head around. And that's quite typical. It looks a lot like a dog when a dog does that. And that's quite typical because they will do that with small prey. They'll catch it and then shake it. With bigger prey, that's a bit more difficult, obviously, because you can't really shake a 220 kg kudu. But it's really cool to see how they develop those type of strengths from the time they're really young. Anyway, I am on the road to the den, so I will be there in just a matter of minutes. In the meantime, let me send you back over to James in the tent.
Righty, let's hope there is something at the den, something like a hyena, basically. In fact, only a hyena or 2 or 3 at the den. Okay, we're going to move on to our next clip now, once Sebastian has returned from where he is. You're okay there, are you? It's lovely outside. Okay, well, we'll push play and then you can come in. Okay. Right, so this is Tlalamba taking care not to become prey, a kind of highlights package from August last year. This original clip here is from the Gauntlet series, and this was Craig and I, we had a wonderful time with her before we went live. Naturally, obviously, all the action happens before you go live for a TV series, and you can see the lions there marking their territory underneath the tree. Now, here we have, let me just go back a bit there. Come on now, let me go back. So she's here in August. She's obviously 9 months old now, me just go right back. And she's been able to climb since probably 6 weeks, and you can see she's completely comfortable in the branches. And the lions could have got up into the tree, and she would have just gone higher until they became too heavy for the branches. All right, now we have hyenas, arch nemesis, of course, all the time. Now watch how cheeky she gets here. Straight past the front of the hyena there. She gets closer before she goes up the tree, which I think is quite funny. Anyway, there she sits, perfectly safe. Hyena's got absolutely no chance at all. It's quite a scraggly, spiky tree. It's a jacket plum. Anyway, she's learnt to avoid her predators much more skillfully than I think any of us could, certainly. And she learnt at a very early age how to avoid predators because her mother has not always been around. That first little clip there, or the first shot of her climbing the tree, she was very much dependent on Tandi, and Tandi pitched up not long after that to say hello and then lay under the tree for quite some time while Tlalamba waited there. And then Tandi went off hunting. And I don't know how many of you watched the show, but after the TV show, we had that extra sort of hour that went into the internet, and you guys probably, well, many of you would have watched the whole 2 hours. And we had that wonderful shot of Tandi on a low termite mound with the sun coming up red behind her. I'm not sure if you remember that, but that was that very day. Okay, so that's that particular clip. Are we going to do the other one now, Nina, as well, or are we going to wait for the next segment in the tent? No, we're not going to do it now. We're going to go back over to the Maasai Mara where David, I'm looking at all the feeds now, seems to be... No, I don't see David at all, in fact. He seems to be black screen. Are you sure we're going to go to David? All right, let's go.
Hopefully, yes. And I change what the Mamo has been talking about, and we do a bit of batting because I guess this is what we call a black-headed heron. Look at that little ponytail-like that, comes out behind her head. How beautiful is this? I mean, I've always looked at the colors of particular birds, but I think the black-headed heron, a mature one, that black is so dark that it comes out very well, and it's a big contrast between the black and the white as you look at it. We got many birds that when they hunt, they're always moving the grass like I'm talking about the secretary bird, but the herons are always very patient, very slow, and they take their time and wait until something moves. She could be there as long as it takes until something moves, in the grass there. It could be a frog, it could be some sort of insect like a grasshopper or a locust. Could be a snake also. A few days ago I saw one that was, hunting a snake. It got a snake, and just like the secretary birds, it did not give it time to die. She just swallowed it whole. Can hear a very noisy bird. I'm guessing the frankling from a distance. I can't see it. Very similar to this one here is the grey heron. What is that bird? It's some sort of frankling. I would guess that could be maybe cocky frankling, but it's definitely a frankling that's very, very chatty. I'm not sure for what reason. There she goes again. Now, it's very difficult to hear the herons make particular calls. Well, I just wish you catch something for yourself, and you'll have yourself some dinner tonight. I'm not sure it's Oli who is looking for Tingana and Juma.
Yes, I'm searching and searching, and I'm still searching. And I've been through all the places where Tingana might be. So I'm driving in a driveway bed called Mluamati. I think I'll be using my spotlight on, because I think these leopards are attracted to light. Who knows? So maybe they will come to me. So these are reasons why leopards are called the masters of camouflage, because of these reasons. Hey, squirrel, let's go for these two. Maybe they will tell us where the leopards are, because they know they really like to shout, sometimes for nothing. They just shout because they can. I can't tell who is who there, male or female, just running around. And squirrels are known to plant a lot of trees, and they don't know that. But most of the trees here, we see, some of them, they are planted by squirrels. Because, you know, they love feeding on seeds. Mostly marula seeds. They will plant them and they will forget where they've planted them. Then that's where, when the rain comes, then that seed will start to germinate. They have to check for tracks. So Tingana has been playing hide and seek since I started with my drive. So let's see what Tingana has been up to last week. Tingana had a feast after stealing Tandi's meal. Leftovers failed to satisfy him, and he followed his nose, hoping for another meal. He made his way towards the Nkuhuma kill. He walked cautiously towards the pride and their kill. He knows he is no match for a lion and diverted from his scavenging plan. He tried his luck with a scrub hare, but the Duke of Djuma was a bit optimistic. After this failure, he continued on the hunt. Yes, Tingana. He won't stop being a thief, hey? Because, you know, if you still remember Hosana, Tingana's son, he used to kill antelopes, and then at the end of the day, Tingana will come and take his kills. It's still happening with Tandi or Talamba. If Tingana smells a carcass, and Tingana will go there and rob them, that carcass. He's growing old, also a thief. So Tingana just wants them to know that this is his territory. So let's go to the tent while I'm using my spotlight to search for these rosetted cats. Let's see how James is doing with Talamba.
It is still very interesting, I think, that Tingana has managed to hold on to this territory. He doesn't seem to be struggling at all. We thought he'd lost a bit of condition, I guess, round about this time last year, but actually he seems to be absolutely fine, and in fact just as strong as he ever has been. So that's great for us, I think, because we love him so very much. Okay, we're going to have a last look now at Talamba. Here she is, almost as a fully grown, well, not almost fully grown, but certainly close to full grown, almost fully independent leopardess. There we have her. And this, of course, just post her killing her very first impala ram. So she killed an impala ram, and unfortunately she had it stolen by hyenas and her mother and her, well, I think her father was around there, but he didn't actually manage to kill or get any bits of it. So her mother stole it first, and then the hyenas did as well. Okay, Seb, are you able to come in here? Are you stuck on something, are you? Sebastian, unfortunately, is stuck. Oh, you are. You're back. Okay. All right. So, I mean, look, this clip shows you basically the kill. She made an impala ram kill, possibly not the only one she's made. It unfortunately doesn't show you what or her actually killing it. But what it does show you is the size of prey she's now capable of taking down. There she is. She weighs in the region of, I'm going to say 35 kilograms now, maybe 45, maybe 40 kilograms or so, which is about 90 pounds or so. I don't think it's more than that. And she took down that impala ram, fully grown impala ram, between 65 and 70 kilograms. So about double her mass, which is pretty impressive. She's obviously too small to hoist it at this stage. And I mean, she's definitely hoisting scrub hares, and she's probably hoisted that duiker that we saw her eating already, but definitely not strong enough to pick up something quite that big just yet and put it in a tree. So that's her independence there, or certainly her killing instincts at good play. And there you saw her snarling at her mother, and so she too is now snarling at Tandi and feeling slightly hardly done by. And there the hyenas are enjoying their ill-gotten gains. Also, let's not feel too sorry for her, because she will certainly get some ill-gotten gains herself. She's not snarling at the hyenas there, that's at her mother. I remember the sighting. You can see she's still got a young look about her, though. Her head and body have I don't know, they've got like a sort of teenagerish vibe about them. She doesn't look quite grown into herself yet, and so she's not yet an adult. But now she's more a teenager. She's sort of a maturing teenager at this stage. Now, last night, if you weren't watching, and I'm sure you were, or most of you would have been, we had an amazing sighting of Tlalamba, Tandi and Tingana in the same place. Tandi was not happy to have either of those two there. She hissed and snarled at both of them. She gave a particularly hard time to her daughter, not so much to Tingana. And we think perhaps that this cat has got another sibling. We know of at least two surviving siblings that she has, Bahuti and, of course, Kuchava. There's also Tamba as well, all right, but he's gone off. And we don't know whether Tandi has given birth to another sibling, or two or three, but it looked from the interaction yesterday as though she might have. Tandi's belly has emptied. It looked like she might be carrying milk in the area around her belly where the mammary glands were. We certainly didn't get a look at her teeth, so we don't know for sure if she is lactating. But it's very interesting, and it is quite possible that that birth of a sibling is now going to push this cat to complete independence. And, it's on the verge of happening anyway. She's going to be sandwiched into a territory somewhere, I think, centrally here. I think that she's going to be in a territory between Kuchava to the west and Tandi to the east. I think Tandi may well go sort of back to where she used to hang around, largely in Torchwood, just the eastern edges of Djuma when Karula was around. And I think that this cat is going to occupy Karula's central old territory, so her grandmother's old territory. I could be quite wrong, but it will almost certainly, not definitely, but almost certainly be close to where Tandi's territory is. And that process is going to accelerate if Tandi does have new cubs, which is very exciting indeed. It's probably, look, we say it's quite young. I think it is quite young for Tandi to be having... Tlalamba's quite young for Tandi to be having new cubs, but it's not impossibly young, and certainly it has happened. We've seen this kind of thing before, and it would be good for Tandi because, of course, she's no spring chicken, and so if she has got new cubs now, she's perfectly capable of raising them. So that was the little sort of story of Tlalamba from complete dependence to, full independence with what we saw last night. Let's go across to who we're going to now? To Trishala. Oh, I see she's at the den. It looks like it's active.
Just like Tandi's pregnancy, cubs and all of that is so unpredictable, and we hardly know whether she's given birth, whether she was actually pregnant, all of that to think about. Just like that, we don't know where the hyenas are. So this is the third den that I'm checking, a den that I know that they used to use quite a while ago. And it's quite close to a den that is currently in use, but is not the one with the splash pool out front. It's the double story or triple story den. So this one's close by, so I thought I'd check it just in case, because they've been so scattered lately, it seems like I just can't get them in one spot in the same way that you used to be, 3 adults and cubs, June, even 4 adults, Pretty's cubs, Corky's, Plonk, June's cubs, Ribbon's cubs. We used to see them all together congregating in this one space, but now I have no idea where they are. So they seem to have spread out a little bit, so I'm going around and checking all the possible den sites out here. Very unpredictable. but they will be found. Watch, Jamie comes back tomorrow, and that is when they will be out to greet her, I'm sure. 100% sure, actually. Anyway, there seems to be nothing going on here. There was a little bit of sort of scrape marks or sand movement towards the entrance of the tunnels, which would indicate that maybe there's something going on here. So it's one to watch, definitely. So I will be checking out this den as well, I think, in the future, just in case, you never know. Anyway, let me send you back over to James, and it's come to that time of the evening, and he will bid you all farewell.
It's come to that time, yes, that you have to come back to me because we want to look at the sunset with you, and I'm going to now frame myself behind this little tuft of grasses and look pensive. Do I look pensive? Very good. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little sort of trip down memory lane with Tlalamba. Hopefully we'll be able to do it all again with a new set of cubs. I'd love to have some opinions from you, so maybe you can tweet us over the course of the next day. Do you think that she has given birth or not? In fact, I think we should probably do a Twitter poll. Maybe we could do that and put it out, and we'll announce the results of that tomorrow. Has Tandi given birth? Yes or no? You're not allowed to sit on the fence. You can answer us that, and we'll give you the results tomorrow. So that would be very exciting indeed. I would be one of the people, I think, that would say I don't know, I'm not sure. But I'm going to say yes, because I hope that she has given birth, and I think it would be very exciting. And I don't think either Tingana or Tlalamba pose any danger. But any cat, of course, with young cubs or young kittens is going to be very defensive of any predator around them. So I think that explains, perhaps, the aggression that we saw yesterday. All righty. Thank you very much for joining us. It's been marvellous in the tent once more. I do so enjoy it here, and I do so enjoy Safari Lives and chatting about our characters in depth because, of course, delving into their lives is what makes Safari Live so special, as do you, of course, and by that I mean your questions and your comments. So thank you very much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, morning or evening, wherever you happen to be in the world, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.